For years, Kendra Duggar was the absolute poster child for the fundamentalist dream. She spent her entire adult life proudly showcasing her rapidly expanding family, her perfectly curated Arkansas home, and her perpetually flawless smile on national television and across Instagram. She was the golden girl of the Duggar empire, never missing a beat, never dropping that signature giggle. But oh, how the mighty have fallen. Today, that same woman who capitalized on living her life completely in the public eye is suddenly paying top dollar to completely vanish. That's right. According to exclusive theories and explosive recent updates, Kendra Duggar is officially in hiding. She is allegedly holed up in an undisclosed, highly secure private residence, desperately trying to escape the absolute monster of a public relations crisis she actively helped create. The irony is staggering. The woman who wanted us to watch her every move, who monetized her milestones, is now absolutely terrified of being seen. Before we dive into the chilling details of this secret safe house and the shocking raid that forced her into hiding, you need to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. We are uncovering the darkest Duggar secrets that Jim Bob is desperately trying to bury, and you do not want to miss a single update. Make sure you ring that notification bell so you are the first to know when our exclusive theories drop, because the mainstream media is completely missing the real story here, and we are exposing it all. Let us rewind the clock and look at how we got to this unprecedented moment of absolute chaos. Remember the giggling, wide-eyed 19-year-old Kendra Caldwell who married Joseph Duggar back in 2017? She was quite literally the picture-perfect IBLP bride. To the Institute in Basic Life Principles and to Jim Bob Duggar, Kendra was the ultimate prize. She was young, she was undeniably beautiful, and most importantly, she was incredibly submissive. Her family, the Caldwells, were deeply entrenched in the same toxic theology, meaning Kendra was trained from birth to be the ultimate compliant wife. When she married Joseph, it was framed as a fundamentalist royal wedding. They were the couple that was going to prove that the Duggar way still worked. They bypassed the typical starter home phase because Jim Bob, in his classic controlling fashion, essentially gifted them a dream home right there on the sprawling Duggar compound. Living on the compound wasn't just about free rent. It was a physical manifestation of loyalty to the family patriarch. It was Jim Bob's way of keeping his most valuable assets under his thumb, and Kendra played her part flawlessly. She immediately started pumping out kids, welcoming baby after baby in rapid succession, looking like the ultimate success story of Jim Bob's fundamentalist empire. Every photo she posted was a pastel-colored dream. The children were always perfectly dressed, her hair was always perfectly curled, and she always had that wide, trademark smile plastered across her face. They were the golden couple, shielding the Duggar brand from the massive scandals swirling around the older siblings. Kendra was the distraction. She was the pristine, untouched image of domestic bliss that the family desperately needed the public to focus on. And for a few years, the illusion held up perfectly. Fans adored her, the ratings were steady, and Kendra seemed completely untouchable, floating above the darkness that we all knew existed within the walls of the Big Tin Mansion. But perfection is a fragile illusion, and the first cracks in Kendra's carefully constructed porcelain life began to show much earlier than anyone in the family wanted to admit. Dedicated fans and sharp-eyed critics started noticing a highly disturbing shift in Kendra's behavior. The woman who used to share every family picnic and holiday gathering suddenly went dark. The updates slowed down to a trickle, and then they stopped completely. Kendra and her kids were becoming incredibly isolated. While other Duggar wives were out launching YouTube channels and monetizing their daily routines, Kendra retreated behind the gates of the compound. It wasn't just a desire for privacy, it felt like a forced quarantine. The eerie silence from their corner of the property was deafening, and it raised massive red flags that the quote-unquote perfect mom was privately struggling under the crushing pressure of her reality. And then came the terrifying exclusive theories that began circulating in the darkest corners of the internet. Whispers of blanket training. For those who don't know, blanket training is a highly controversial, deeply disturbing child-rearing method promoted by Michael and Debbie Pearl, authors who are heavily revered in the Duggar circle. It involves placing an infant or toddler on a blanket and physically striking them with a ruler or flexible plumbing line if they attempt to crawl off of it. It is designed to break a child's will entirely. Rumors began to swirl that the rigid adherence to these extreme disciplinary tactics was taking place inside Joseph and Kendra's home. The complete lack of public visibility only fueled these theories. Why were the children never seen running freely in the yard anymore? Why were there no impromptu videos of the kids just being normal, messy toddlers? The pristine image was beginning to rot from the inside out. Kendra was trapped in an echo chamber of extreme fundamentalist expectations, surrounded only by her in-laws, with no connection to the outside world to tell her that what was happening wasn't normal. The silence wasn't peace. It was the quiet before a massive, destructive storm. The catalyst that finally shattered the facade and sparked the ultimate downfall came crashing down in the middle of the night. The moment Tontitown police raided their home following Joseph's horrifying Florida arrest, everything changed. Based on our exclusive theories and recent updates, the authorities didn't just walk up and knock on the door. This was a targeted, urgent intervention. When the officers breached the threshold of that perfect little house on the Duggar compound, they weren't just looking for digital evidence or paperwork. They were responding to an environment of alleged extreme control. And what they uncovered inside sent shockwaves through the entire community. According to these explosive recent updates, investigators walked down the hallway of that beautifully decorated home and discovered alleged locks installed on the outside of the children's bedroom doors. Let that sink in for a moment. Locks on the outside. This completely dismantles the image of the giggling, sweet mother tucking her babies into bed. A lock on the outside of a door isn't for privacy. It is for imprisonment. It is a chilling mechanism of absolute control. In an instant, the narrative surrounding Kendra Duggar violently shifted. She was no longer just the naive, victimized wife sitting quietly while her husband brought shame to the family name. The discovery of those exterior locks fundamentally changed her status in the eyes of the law and the public. Suddenly, Kendra wasn't just collateral damage in Joseph's scandal. She was a suspect. She was the one home with those children every single day. She was the one managing that household. The idea that she could be complicit in, or even responsible for, physically locking her children inside their rooms turned her from a fundamentalist princess into a potential criminal overnight. The golden era was officially dead, buried under the flashing red and blue lights of the Tontitown police cruisers, leaving a terrified Kendra to finally face the horrific reality of the life she had built. The immediate aftermath of that devastating raid should have been a wake-up call that would bring any normal mother to her absolute knees. But in the twisted, heavily insulated reality of the Duggar universe, it was treated as nothing more than a temporary, deeply inconvenient PR hurdle. This brings us to the shocking cover-up and the unimaginable hubris of a woman who honestly believed she was entirely above the law. Based on these exclusive theories, when Kendra was brought down to the Washington County Jail, she did not display the tearful, remorseful demeanor of a mother terrified for her children, or deeply ashamed of the alleged exterior locks found on their bedroom doors. Instead, she operated with the cold, calculated entitlement of someone who knows the system is rigged in her favor. She actually thought that bonding out of that jail in a record-breaking 90 minutes would magically make the entire story disappear. Let us truly examine the sheer audacity of that mindset. 90 minutes. Most ordinary citizens arrested on misdemeanor child endangerment charges would spend hours, if not an entire weekend, sitting in a holding cell, waiting for processing, waiting for a judge, waiting for the massive gears of the justice system to slowly turn. But not a Duggar. The moment those handcuffs clicked, the invisible, highly funded Duggar fixers were allegedly activated. Cash was moved. Phone calls were made to the right people in local law enforcement, and Kendra was whisked out of the booking area before the ink on her fingerprint card was even dry. She walked out of those double-glass doors and breathed the free Arkansas air, completely convinced that she had just outsmarted everyone. She naturally assumed that the legendary Duggar name, which had dominated that specific corner of the state for over a decade, still had enough political and social weight to permanently bury a child endangerment charge before the hungry press even caught a tiny whiff of the scandal. She thought she could just return to the compound, bake some homemade bread, post a perfectly lit photo of her smiling children, and the world would simply move on. It is a terrifying level of delusion. She genuinely believed that because Jim Bob had successfully swept decades of horrific family secrets under the rug, this would be no different. The arrogance it takes to go home and sleep soundly after police document locks on the outside of your children's doors is sickening. But Kendra had been conditioned to believe that worldly authorities had absolutely no jurisdiction over her family. She thought the golden shield of her reality television fame and her father-in-law's deep pockets made her invincible. She thought she got away with it. She thought the nightmare was over before it even began. But she severely underestimated the sheer determination of the public and the media to finally tear down the Duggar facade once and for all. The absolute explosion of this scandal didn't come from a local police blotter. It came from a devastating, high-profile leak that shattered Kendra's false sense of security into a million jagged pieces. According to explosive recent updates and exclusive theories, People magazine somehow managed to get their hands on the ultimate smoking gun, the highly restricted recorded collect call that Joseph Duggar made from his Florida lockup back home to his wife. This audio recording is the defining piece of evidence that exposes exactly how this family operates when the cameras are turned off and the law is closing in. Just picture the incredibly grim scene. Joseph is sitting in a cold, concrete holding cell in Florida, staring down severe, life-altering charges, desperately using his allotted phone time to call his heavily pregnant, newly bailed-out wife. The automated robotic voice announces that the call is from an inmate at a correctional facility and that it is subject to recording and monitoring. Every single criminal defense attorney on the planet tells their clients never, ever to discuss details of a case or their physical whereabouts on a recorded jailhouse line. But the Duggars are so incredibly arrogant and so remarkably sheltered from real-world consequences that they thought they could speak in code. The audio reveals a deeply chilling conversation that completely destroys the narrative of the submissive, panicked housewife. In the recording, Kendra's voice is eerily calm. There are no hysterics, no crying, no begging for answers. Instead, she coldly tells her incarcerated husband, quote, "They brought me to a good place to stay that is very private," end quote. The temperature of the conversation instantly drops. The use of the word they is incredibly sinister. Who are they? Is it Jim Bob's elite team of crisis managers? Is it high-ranking, deeply entrenched members of the IBLP church network acting as a massive underground railroad for disgraced fundamentalists? Kendra speaks with the flat, emotionless tone of a highly trained operative, checking in with a handler, completely detached from the horrific reality that her husband is in jail and she is facing child endangerment charges. But the most revealing part of this explosive audio leak is Joseph's frantic, utterly terrified reaction. The moment those words leave Kendra's mouth, Joseph practically loses his mind on the other end of the line. You can hear the sheer, unadulterated panic in his voice as he violently interrupts her, frantically begging her, quote, "Do not say the location out loud on a recorded line," end quote. He knows they are listening. He knows the media is circling like bloodthirsty sharks. And he knows that if the authorities or the paparazzi discover where this secret safe house is located, the entire Duggar empire could face a catastrophic raid. This heavily leaked phone call was the absolute match in the powder barrel. It completely obliterated Kendra's 90-minute bailout victory lap. It proved to the entire world, and more importantly to the relentless Child Protective Services investigators, that the family was actively engaging in a massive, highly coordinated cover-up. They weren't cooperating with the authorities. They were actively evading them. This wasn't a family seeking redemption. This was a criminal syndicate moving its most vulnerable members to undisclosed locations to hide the evidence. The moment that audio leaked to the public, absolute pandemonium broke out, triggering a desperate, chaotic scramble for survival that Kendra had never experienced in her entire privileged life. The 90-minute bailout meant absolutely nothing now. The entire world was watching. The mainstream media was descending upon Tontitown, and the pressure was reaching a boiling point. This brings us to the massive damage control operation that completely upended Kendra's existence. The illusion was dead, and sheer, unfiltered terror took its place. She suddenly realized that the sprawling, heavily gated Duggar compound, the place she had considered her ultimate fortress, was actually ground zero for the investigation. It was the absolute worst place she could possibly be. The compound was surrounded. According to exclusive theories, drone cameras were constantly buzzing over the Tin Mansion. Paparazzi were permanently camped out at the main gates with massive telephoto lenses. And worst of all, state investigators were knocking on doors with thick clipboards and terrifying questions about exterior locks and child welfare. Kendra completely abandoned the Duggar compound. She didn't just pack a weekend bag, she executed a middle-of-the-night, highly secretive exfiltration from the very property she once proudly showed off on TLC. She gathered her children under the cover of darkness and went into total, complete hiding. The woman who used to eagerly smile for the cameras was now absolutely paralyzed by the thought of being photographed. She is terrified of the paparazzi capturing a shot of her looking disheveled, defeated, and guilty. But the paparazzi are the least of her concerns. Her true overriding fear is the looming threat of CPS investigators. When you are facing a misdemeanor child endangerment charge, and there is documented evidence of alleged locks on the outside of your children's bedroom doors, Child Protective Services does not just casually close the file. They are legally obligated to investigate the living conditions, interview the children, and potentially remove them from the home if they deem the environment to be unsafe. By fleeing into the shadows, Kendra is engaging in a terrifying game of cat and mouse with state authorities. She is terrified of the furious public, the former fans who feel deeply betrayed by her giggling persona, and the massive, angry online communities who are demanding justice for those locked-up children. This scramble into a secret, undisclosed private residence isn't just a media strategy. It is a desperate, adrenaline-fueled flight from accountability. She's living behind blackout curtains, allegedly using burner phones, completely disconnected from the social media world she used to rule. The polished, perfect Arkansas housewife is gone, replaced by a fugitive hiding out in a fortified safe house, jumping at every single sound, wondering if the next knock on the door will be the police returning with a warrant to take her children away forever. But the most absolutely jaw-dropping element of this entire catastrophic saga is the shocking reality of who exactly she is running from. She isn't just hiding from the law or the relentless flashing cameras of the paparazzi. She is actively hiding from the very people who created her public persona. By fleeing into the dead of night to a secret, undisclosed location, Kendra has executed the ultimate, unforgivable betrayal against the Duggar family. According to our explosive, exclusive theories, this chaotic exit strategy was absolutely not sanctioned by Jim Bob Duggar. For the first time in her entire heavily monitored life, Kendra has essentially gone rogue. She has completely and utterly cut ties with the legendary, highly funded Duggar PR machine. Historically, when any member of this fundamentalist dynasty faces a massive, brand-destroying scandal, the protocol dictated by Jim Bob is incredibly rigid and strictly enforced. The family is commanded to circle the wagons, release a heavily sanitized, ghost-written joint statement about faith, spiritual warfare, and forgiveness. And then the disgraced couple is usually forced to sit down for a highly controlled, tearful, softball television interview to manipulate the public into feeling sympathy for them. That is the Duggar playbook. That is how they survived for over a decade. But Kendra looked at that playbook and threw it straight into the fire. She firmly rejected the script. She looked at the absolute radioactive wasteland that the Duggar name has become in the wake of federal convictions and police raids, and she seemingly had a terrifying epiphany. She realized that associating herself with her in-laws right now, aligning herself with the men who brought the police to her doorstep, is a one-way ticket to total social, financial, and legal destruction. The recent updates painting the picture behind the scenes suggest that Jim Bob Duggar is absolutely livid over this defection. He is a man who thrives entirely on absolute, unquestioned control of his family members, and right now, his perfectly programmed, most reliable daughter-in-law is completely off the grid, aggressively refusing to play her assigned role in his desperate damage control narrative. She has isolated herself entirely, violently severing the psychological umbilical cord to the Tontitown compound because she finally understands a deeply chilling truth. She knows that if she goes down for those alleged exterior locks found on her children's doors, Jim Bob will gladly and swiftly throw her completely under the bus to protect his biological son, Joseph. The realization that she is utterly expendable in the eyes of the Duggar patriarch has fundamentally shattered the lifelong brainwashing she endured. She is not hiding in a safe house with the Duggars. She is utilizing a safe house to hide from the Duggars. She has locked them out of her life just as fiercely as she allegedly locked those bedroom doors, terrified that their toxic influence will be the final nail in her legal coffin. And this brings us to the profound, almost cinematic ultimate irony of this entire catastrophic situation. You really have to stop and think about the intense psychological conditioning Kendra Caldwell endured from the literal moment she was born into this world. She was meticulously trained, day in and day out, by the extreme fundamentalist teachings of the Institute in Basic Life Principles to practice radical obedience. She was taught from infancy to keep sweet, to completely suppress her own natural desires, to never, ever question male authority, and above all else, to submit entirely and joyfully to her husband and his family. Her entire existence, her entire personality was engineered by her parents and her church to be perfectly, undeniably compliant. She was the ultimate fundamentalist success story because she possessed absolutely zero autonomy. Yet here we are today, witnessing the unbelievable, unprecedented spectacle of this deeply conditioned, aggressively submissive woman using the exact freedom granted to her by the worldly, secular legal system, her massive bail payout, to actively run away from the very religious authority she was taught to worship as absolute truth. The irony is so incredibly bright, it is blinding. The dutiful, whispering, ever-smiling Fundy princess is currently utilizing the anonymity of a secret private residence to deliberately evade the jurisdiction and control of her ultra-powerful father-in-law. She is seeking sanctuary literally anywhere else on Earth but the heavily fortified Duggar compound. The exact same woman who was paraded on national television for years as the ultimate shining example of joyful, biblical submission has effectively become a desperate fugitive from her own faith community. She used the very secular justice system that her cult vehemently despises to secure her physical freedom from a jail cell. And she is now using that exact freedom to orchestrate a massive, unprecedented rebellion against her headship. It is the ultimate humiliating self-own for the Duggars. Jim Bob and Michelle genuinely thought they had successfully molded the perfect, unquestioning, eternally loyal wife for Joseph. They thought they had secured an asset that would never break rank. But the sheer, unadulterated terror of looming jail time and the horrifying prospect of Child Protective Services investigations managed to instantly snap the hypnotic trance of the cult. The submissive, giggling bride has rapidly transformed into a fiercely desperate survivor, realizing in the darkest moment of her life that the protective umbrella of authority Jim Bob always promised was actually just a heavily monitored cage. And the moment the Tontitown police showed up with their flashlights and their questions, she realized that the cage was locked from the outside, and her only chance at survival was to completely vanish into the shadows. The pieces of this massive, horrifying puzzle are currently scattered across the country, and while the mainstream media is completely paralyzed and looking the other way, we are just getting started uncovering the darkest secrets of this fallen empire. This is exactly where I need you, the viewers, to step in and join this massive, real-time investigation. Where do you honestly think Kendra Duggar is hiding right now at this very moment? Is she secretly staying with her Caldwell parents, hiding out in their basement with her children while they desperately figure out how to legally and socially navigate this spectacular, humiliating fall from grace? Or, based on these wild recent updates, do you think Jim Bob Duggar actually footed the massive bill for this highly secure, secret safe house under the strict, terrifying condition that she keep her mouth permanently shut and agree to take the entire fall for the family's alleged crimes? The legal and social implications of her disappearance are absolutely massive, and the explosive truth is out there right now, just waiting to be completely uncovered. Drop your most detailed, exclusive theories in the comment section down below right now. I read every single one of your comments, and your brilliant insights might just be the exact key we need to crack this entire criminal case wide open. Do not let the Duggar PR machine successfully bury this story under the rug like they have done so many times before. Smash that subscribe button right now, hit the like button to aggressively push this vital video through the YouTube algorithm so the entire world can see the truth. And make absolutely sure you ring that notification bell so you never miss out on the latest updates. We are collectively watching a toxic fundamentalist television empire violently collapse in real time, and you absolutely need to be here for every single shocking, unbelievable second of it.